Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Baker and this is Momma Stories. I created Momma Stories after seeing how impactful sharing stories can be in overcoming the challenges of motherhood. I am where I am today because of the stories of so many amazing, strong mamas, and I want to share that with every mom I can. So follow along to laugh, cry, and be empowered. Thanks for tuning in to today's show. Have you heard about how we are changing the story for moms? Momma Fund is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to providing products, services, and education to moms in need. So check us out at mommafund.org. All right, welcome to the show today. We have Anna. Anna, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Anna, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've been in Seattle for about 20 years, so I'm a Seattleite, and I am a mama of two, one little boy who's 6, little girl who's 3. I have a fur baby as well, and I am a local photographer. I've been doing that for about almost 8 years now, which is kind of crazy to say. Weddings, babies, properties, all of the above. And I am a recent single divorced mom.
Yeah.
That is having a fun journey.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I want to get into that. You actually took our pictures, which is how we met. You are very talented at what you do.
Thank you.
And I love your tattoo on your arm. She has a camera. And then what does it say? Smile?
Smile.
Cute. That's so cute. Sorry, you can't see it for those of you that are listening, but trust me, it's real cute.
Look on my Instagram.
There you go. All right. So you mentioned your son is 6.
Mm-hmm.
So 6 years ago, you became a mom.
Mm-hmm.
What was that journey like for you?
You know, what's interesting, I think it's a lot different now than it was 6 years ago even. And I'm really noticing because I have some friends that just had babies this last year. And I feel like my journey coming into motherhood was more instinctual. And I feel like right now there's more of like, you got to look everything up. You're online. You're constantly like being compared to everybody else. And so for me, it was nice because nobody really had kids at the time. None of my friends. I was 25 when I had them. So not a lot of people had kids at the moment. And for me, I just had to figure it all out on my own. I had like a couple of friends that had kids that I kind of vibe with, but for the most part, like it was just me, him, and his dad. And I went from being like, I would never stay at home with a baby. I'm always going to work because I've been working since like 14 and I've always had my own money, to I got pregnant. And within like 6 months into my pregnancy, I was like, there's no way I can go back to work. Like, no way. And so that's where I was. At the time, I was just kind of doing photography as a fun thing. And a friend asked to like pay me to do it. And I thought, okay, she paid me like $50 to do her and like 4 kids. I was like, sure, let's do that. So I went from, okay, I'm just doing this thing as a hobby, to like, oh, I can make a little money, to I'm pregnant, to holy cow, maybe I can use this as a way to make money and stay home with him. And then the minute I had him, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be in it. So I made the choice to be a stay-at-home mom. And just because of the way I am, I was like, I need to make my own money. Yeah. So I just started really going hard on the photography. Yeah. And that was when Facebook was still like really good for business, because it's changed a lot. But it was like, just the timing of it was perfect. It was like on the rise. And so I just used Facebook as a way to get my clients, and it worked so well.
Yeah.
So well.
Awesome. And now you've got like different deals and you do different things with your photography business, not even just taking pictures of families. You have real estate companies hiring you, and then
I have my portrait studio in Mill Creek Town Center. Yep. And I travel. I mean, I did a wedding in Thailand and in Italy this year, which is big things to check off my list. But that's part of the whole thing that I absolutely love is, and then they were both friends, kind of. The Italy wedding was a brother's friend, but it was just nice to travel with friends and be there to cherish their moments, and then also like do work while I'm there. So yeah, I loved it.
That's so cool. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. All right. So now you fast forward, transition into motherhood 6 years ago, fast forward. Now you have 2. Mm-hmm. And recently you find yourself faced with separation.
Yeah. So my divorce came very unexpectedly. I mean, literally, it was a phone call that changed my whole life, really. I do you want me to get into on how I found out?
Girl,
Because
this
you
is
know I
your
will.
space. You tell me.
So my ex-husband now, but my husband at the time were going on a date night like any other couple would. We were in the car driving down 405. My phone rings. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered because of my business. I always answer. And I said, hey, and I heard the voice and it was shaky and I could hear the person was upset and I couldn't really realize who it was. And I said, hey, who is it? And I can't say his name, but find out that it's one of my really close friends' husbands. And he said, well, I just want you to know that your husband screwed my wife yesterday. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And I'm in the passenger seat with my husband. So I look over at him and I say, it's so-and-so's husband. And he looks at me, and just by the look of his face, I was like, oh, it's true. Okay. So I asked him to get off the freeway, and yeah, I handled myself well.
Wow.
But yeah, so I found that out, and then I found out that there had been a year worth of infidelities with multiple women and things. And so we went from, we were in counseling last year over some interesting stuff that now makes a lot more sense. But during the time, I didn't understand why that wasn't even an issue. But, and then I find out he's just been lying the entire time. So it makes sense. But we went from graduating from our counseling in November to me finding this out in February. So we were like really great communication. We went to Thailand and we went to Hawaii in January. And then I came back, and 2 weeks later, it was like my whole world just exploded.
Wow.
And we were planning on moving out of here, getting a house. We had, I actually didn't take as many weddings as I usually do this last summer, because I was going to focus on squid socks and do that a bit more. So it was like, I had all these plans for the, next couple of years that just all went right out the window, because there was just no forgiving what he had done, just because it was so deep and he lied so much. Yeah. It wasn't like a one-time thing. It was just like a constant thing. And he admitted that he was never going to tell me the truth. He was just going to live a double life. And he really never apologized, and he didn't really feel bad about it. So it was just kind of like, okay, well, this is done. You can get out of my house and let me move on.
Wow. You mentioned squid socks. Sorry, I want to touch on that. That's another business venture for you, right?
Yeah. So Squid Socks actually is owned by my clients. So they had been my clients for a while. I was a second shooter at their wedding. I did their like newborn photos and stuff, and they came to me as somebody that just wanted product images of their product. Okay. And I completely fell in love. I mean, they're socks that don't come off.
Yeah, for kids.
Yes. So they're amazing. And my daughter had the biggest issue with that, and she kept those things on the whole day, the first day I had them. And I just knew, I'm like, this is awesome. Like, how can I help you? So I kind of helped with the beginning stages of everything with social media and just getting it out there. We went to Vegas and did a baby show and that type of thing.
That's so cool.
It just sucks because I was like in this like really exciting stage with them right when I found everything out. Yeah. And then I realized like now I'm down to one income. Squid Socks was still growing, so it's not like they were able to really, give me consistent money the way I needed it. And so I was like, you know what, I just need to like pause and really get in on my photography business and get somewhere with this. So that way at least I have some security. But they were just on Shark Tank, on Friday.
Oh, they were?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's amazing.
Was it Friday that it aired or Sunday? Maybe it was Sunday. But yeah, so I love it. And I keep in touch with them, and I'm absolutely here for them all the way. And I'm now that my season's kind of slowing down, I really hope that I can kind of jump back in and help them with everything, because they're amazing and the company's amazing. And it's a husband and wife team that just kills it.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
All right. So you're faced with this like tidal wave that's coming at you.
Yeah.
So my curiosity goes to, if that was me, I don't know how I would handle myself. Obviously, we don't know until we're ever in that situation. But like, how do you then handle kids? Like, how do you balance? I'm a mom And also I'm super crushed.
Yeah. So what's interesting about that, like the first few days is probably the hardest, honestly. Like those first, the shock of it all, the anger, all of that you're dealing with. My initial reaction was obviously anger. And I did remove myself from the situation. I had my best friend come and pick me up, and I actually handled myself way better than I thought I would. I thought I would smash his face in and honestly like take a bat to his car. I didn't. I did crush the Xbox because when I came back that night, he was sitting on the couch eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and playing video games. And I was like, oh no, oh no, that's not happening. So that's like the only like rage thing that I did. But my kids were with my mom that night because we had date night. And so I just texted her and I said, hey, some stuff went down. I need you to keep the kids for one more day. And I told him, I said, you have 24 hours to get out of my house and we'll figure out the rest. So I took 24 hours. He took 24 hours. And then when we got the kids, we just went right into it. I mean, he just, he said, hey, I'm not going to live here anymore. His take on it was, mommy and daddy don't love each other anymore and we're not boyfriend and girlfriend anymore. So then you don't live together when it's like that. And my daughter, like, well, whatever. She was 2 at the time, not really no care in the world. But my son was kind of like, okay. And I could tell he wasn't communicating anything, but I could tell he was processing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he left, and he put them to bed that night, and then he left, and he wasn't there the next morning, and which was pretty typical to our routine. Like he would put him to bed, and then he leaves before anybody's up anyways for work. So it wasn't like too far from our routine. And then he would come back after work and he'd be here, hang out with them, put them to sleep, and then leave again. So for the first week, it was noticed that he wasn't here, but it wasn't as hard. And I would probably say a week in, Mason was like pissed. They were like wrestling, hanging out, and Mason punched him square in the nose. And he said, well, you're not my dad anymore.
Oh, no.
And that, I mean, I could just tell from his face that he just, and I said, no, like, of course that's your dad. He just doesn't live here, but he's always going to be your dad. He's always here for you, whatever. So that night, Chad left. And when it was my night to put them to bed or whatever, they just weren't having it. I mean, we were like sitting on the floor, both, like, I had both of them. They were huddled and just sobbing and saying that they miss daddy. And I had that moment where I was like, okay, you can be prideful and you can be superwoman and say, you know what, like, I got this. These are my babies. But then at the end of the day, that's what they need, is that they need to know that this person is, even though he's not living here, he's always here for them in their hard times. And so I just said, why don't we call daddy? We'll talk to him. And then he came back and he hung out with us and put them to bed and all of that. So for me, that first week, it was really about them and not really about me. Obviously, I didn't want to be around him. Obviously, I didn't want to see them. I didn't want any part of it. But I also knew that looking at my kids, it wasn't fair for me just to like completely, remove him from the situation.
But is it so hard? I feel like I'm not the kind of person that would be okay with like just being in that room. Like it would be hard for me to not say, well, your dad. Well, do you? Mm-hmm.
I know.
It would be hard. And because I think
is.
like it's our human instinct to do that because someone harmed us. It's our wall. It's our guard. So here you are, like, what's happening. He's still so involved. Like he's still here.
Yeah.
How do you stop yourself from doing that?
I think honestly, one thing that I knew this from a previous relationship, his dad was never around, but he loved his dad unconditionally. And I just know that that's how kids function. They will love their parent to the end of the world. Like, and it doesn't matter what they do. They will always love them. So for me, that was kind of my thing, is they're going to love him no matter what. And even though he did not consider them in this situation, he's not a bad person, right? Like if he was a bad guy in general, I would be like, no, cutting it off. Sure. But he's a good dad. He loves his kids. He's shown up for his kids. He's always been a good dad. So I just couldn't even justify it in my head of why I would keep that uncomfortable for anybody, because at least there's that one thing that he's good at. And I feel like it's the most important, really, at the end of the day. I mean, I'll be fine, but if he shows up for them, that's all that I really care about.
Yeah. Well, that's really strong of you to do that. I feel like that has to take a lot of reasoning in your mind.
It does. And honestly, it for me, it took a lot of time just to be with friends and family. And I went public with it, as you know. So because I mean, I'm all over social media just because of my business anyways. And so for me, that really helped, because I wasn't hiding from anything, and everybody knew what was going on. And so I got a lot of support I got so much support from people. I probably had like 200-300 messages in my inbox after everything came out, of people sharing their stories of kids, you know. And I asked, like, hey, if somebody has advice on what growing up in a divorced family is like, because I don't have that experience. My parents have been together for 37 years now. So it's like, that's all I really know. Mm-hmm. I just kind of wanted to be like, what are the things that you wish your parents did different, whatever. So I got a lot of input from people that really helped me just realize that at the end of the day, it's, as long as he's a good person, he's good to them, then that's all I'm going to focus on. And I had a lot of rage at that time that I really needed to take care of. So I went to the Rage Industry in Lake City.
Yeah, I've heard of that place.
Oh my goodness. That's the best 15 minutes you'll ever have.
For those who don't know, it's like a room full of like
stuff,
glass and furniture and bats, and you just like
sledgehammers, whatever you want. And you can bring your own stuff too. So I brought some stuff.
Oh, there you go.
And
okay.
It was so satisfying. Like, honestly, I feel like if I didn't go through that little like 15 minutes, I probably would have smashed his car at some point, because that's where all the like cheating was happening, was in his car outside my house. It's really great. So every time I would see that car, I'd like just get that tight chest feeling of like, I need to woosah. But that helped a lot. I think focusing on yourself and just making sure that you're really thinking about how your actions are going to affect your kids is really the biggest part, because I think no good's going to come from you talking smack about their dad. It's just not, you know what I mean? Like,
no, I know. I mean, I've been around people, and I can think of like specific scenarios where, like, you know, you have a vision of somebody and you're like, wow, that's like a really good mom, or really good, or just a good person, or whatever. And then they do that thing where they say something about their significant other to their kid that's diminishing them. It's not that I would then say that's a bad mom. I just would then be like, wow, you just have a lot you need to look at, because that's not serving your kids at all.
Right.
Like, you're literally, that is a selfish act through and through. And we're all selfish. I get it. Like, we're selfish human beings, but don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, that's my line. I'm like, don't talk crap about your kids as family members in front of them.
Yes.
Like,
and even if it's in a joking way, I think that's what my problem was.
I was just going to say, well, I do joking all the time.
But it sometimes, and the only reason I've noticed that is because I'll see the look on, and my oldest really, like, you can really see with him, because he's 6 and he's very in tune with things. And I'll say something and he'll give me kind of like, oh, what did you just say? Kind of look, you know, like, wait. And so I can tell that he doesn't know that I'm joking. He doesn't know that it's, you know, me being silly or whatever, but he also is just taking the words for what they are. And so I try. And the thing too is, he has no idea how lucky he is that I have been so understanding.
Your husband?
Your ex-husband. Yeah, because he's been coming to my house every other day since I found out, and he even spends the night on sometimes Fridays and Saturdays, but every Saturday pretty much. So I've allowed him to come back in here because he still doesn't have a place of his own or anything. So, and I did that because I like the idea of knowing where my kids are and knowing that they're safe and knowing that they have a home environment. And I felt like it was really unfair for me to remove the kids out of their like comfort, you know, and like put them into a 1-bedroom apartment that they're going to share a bed with their dad. Like, it just didn't sit well with me. So I thought the kids' sake, it's best for them just to be here and I'll leave. So I would do like every Saturday, I would either go to a friend's house, I'd go to a hotel, which was really fun. I call them staycations.
Yeah, that is fun.
And so I just, again, it was just as much as it was time for the kids to be with him, it was also time for me to be out of my house and be with myself and like doing things or working on me, spending time with people.
Which I love the most about this story because, so you mentioned earlier that you were pretty public about it, which from the beginning, I have been like knee deep in this because it's two things. I think it is probably one of the most isolating things that can happen when a relationship is broken, especially when there's kids, especially when it's something that is so shattering for you.
Yeah.
But it's also like you have all these misperceptions about like how you should handle things and who should do what. And what I loved so much about what you did and going public and, you continuously did videos just to update on things and get advice is that I think it changed the game for a lot of people to be like, oh, wait, maybe there are other ways to do this. Like maybe you don't have to do it alone, or maybe it doesn't have to be this terrible thing. Maybe it can be a place for self-reflection and self-love. And so there was something really great that I've always loved about your story. But what I do love the most, which I want to talk about, is this self-care you've kind of been forced into. So obviously you see on Instagram, it's like self-care, self-love, get yourself time, mom. And moms can never find the time.
Right.
They just don't find the time. But here you are now, almost forced to find the time or forced to have this time.
I know.
You jumped right in.
I did. I really did. I went all in, and I think, and it's just my personality type. I don't do anything like, at 80%. Like if I'm doing something, it's like 150 or like I'm not doing it at all kind of thing. So when this whole thing came out, I just thought, okay, I have a choice. And my choice was to like sit in my sorrow and be miserable, or take it as an opportunity to live a life that I've always wanted to live. And so I really saw it as an opportunity. Like I just thought, here's an opportunity for me to really live the life that I wanted to live, because he held me back from a lot, because he's not a motivated type of person, and he's the type of guy that can do the same thing every single day and be completely content. And I am not like that at all. Like I'm just now kind of have a little routine in my life, but no. And so for me, it was just great because I knew my kids were going to be safe, right? Because they're with their dad. And two, I knew that we couldn't all like actually hang out together because I wasn't there yet. And so it was like, great. So I have, I know that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, in the evenings, I have 4 hours. And then Saturday, I have pretty much all day. So, which I usually worked, but then in the evenings I would go out. And I thought, great, like my schedule's already mapped out for me. I have these set days and hours that I can dedicate to myself. Like, why wouldn't I do that? So I connected with, and I think also sharing my story, I connected with other women that were going through the same thing or had been, had gone through similar situations. And it was just nice and refreshing to know, hey, you're not alone, right? Yeah. There's so many people that go through this. And cheating is actually a huge reason why people divorce, is just nobody talks about it. Yeah. So the 200-300 messages that I received, a lot of that was, well, I was too ashamed to admit that the reason we divorced was because he cheated, or vice versa. Yeah. Or people that are still in marriages where the other, there was a lot of that where they didn't have the courage to leave. And what I found really interesting is my story helped those people realize, like, it wasn't my fault. I'm not like to blame. So, because a lot of people blame themselves and then they stay in this situation because they somehow think it's their fault. Yeah. But it's like, it's not your fault. Like, I know the things that I did wrong in my marriage. Like, and now it's like clear as day. But I also know that nobody deserves what he did. So it's like, but there's so many, and I want to say women because mostly it was women that I spoke to, but there's so many women that feel so much shame about it. And they feel like it's just like a normal part of society for men to cheat, that they just kind of stay in those situations and always wonder, I don't know, he could be cheating now, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's no.
Well, and it's kind of like what our whole like brain has been molded into, right? It's like if you're the pretty princess, then and you're perfect and you cook and you provide and you do all these things and that won't happen. And so I think when it does, I'm sure there's a lot of that like self-reflection of like, okay, well, where didn't I show up then?
Yeah.
Like, why did this happen?
Yeah. And tell you, the motivation for me to go public with it wasn't really me wanting to go public with it. What it was about 3-4 days into what I was going through, rumors came back to me that he was saying that I cheated and that I wasn't cooking and cleaning enough and I wasn't supportive enough. Oh yeah, it was good. It was really good. And so I was like, oh, hell no. I'm like, no. So I was like, you know what? Facebook Live sounds just about right now. So I just went, and I didn't bash him or anything. I think I was just very like, here's the facts. Here's what's happening. Like, I just didn't want anybody getting anything twisted. And the most like messed up part about it is like, now having looked, at the whole picture, I realize it's just all of his insecurities that really pushed him to do that. Because like I said, he's very like, same job, same place. Like, he would have been doing the same thing had I not like kind of pushed him out of his comfort zone a little bit. Because he works for my mom now, so that's kind of fun.
Oh gosh, that has to add
He's been working with my mom since last year, so that adds an interesting layer to.
Oh wow.
To the and my friend that he had slept with her in his car at my mom's work. So it's like a whole, I know, it's so weird. It is so weird. And he still works there, which blows my mind. Like, I would be like, get the hell out of there, right? Like, the second I was like, nope, I'm not seeing my ex. Like, and my mom's a tough cookie. So
yeah,
like, just
she's
the way
Mama Bear.
Oh yeah, just the way she looks at you, you're like, no, I'm good.
Oh my gosh.
You would just turn around and just, yeah.
So it seems like everything is so intertwined then. I mean, obviously he's the father of your kids, so he'll always be there. But then he works with your mom, and then there's all these people that so how do you not let that suffocate you?
The realization that this person is always going to be there is so painful. I will tell you, that was the hardest thing that I had to deal with, was just realizing, because I'm a cutthroat kind of person. You do me wrong, we're done. Like, there's no going back with it. I'm just not that type of personality. So then to have to be understanding and nice and like work things through, and also like, build a parenting plan and go through the divorce paperwork and all of that, and like working on things together after something like this was mind-boggling. Which I just chose to do really fast. Yeah. Like, really fast. My divorce was finalized in 4 months. I was like, let's just do this real fast. So, and in the state of Washington, they don't even consider it for the first 90 days.
Right. You have to wait. Mm-hmm.
It's such BS, but whatever. But yeah, it just like, it consumes you when you really start to think about those little details. Like, it really does. It messes with your head, because you're trying, the thing that you're always like concerned about is you're going to be alone with 2 children. Who's going to want me? Who's going to, want to be in this situation knowing that this person's always going to be around, who's going to, in my situation right now, it's like, who's going to want somebody whose ex-husband sleeps on their couch every weekend? It's like, and he's here all the time. We see each other all the time. So it's like, what man is going to be confident enough to be able to be in the situation? Who's going to trust enough to do that? And how is that going to look? So it's definitely, those things are definitely, I would say, the things that kind of keep you up at night. Mm-hmm. Like, I definitely didn't sleep very much the first couple of months. And I, coming from a family where everybody was together forever, I don't know what divorce looks like in any shape or form, other than like my friends that I've had in the past. But other than that, I don't have any idea. So to me, I felt like a failure. I felt like I let my whole family down. So you do a lot of that, even though it's nothing you did, right? It's like totally out of your control. But even my decision was hard. For like a split second for me, just because of that. Like, I thought, and I couldn't tell my mom. I couldn't. I called my sister, and I was like, I need you to tell her, because I just can't.
That you were getting a divorce.
That just what
the
had
whole
happened.
situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, luckily, I'm not surprised by my mom's reaction. I mean, she's a badass, so I knew she would, support me 150%, but she had a really hard time even believing it. She, for the first like month, was like, are you sure? Are you sure? Do you have proof? And I'm like, Mom, he admitted it, and she felt so fooled. I mean, everybody did, because again, he's a really nice guy. Everybody will say that. He's such a nice guy. You would never picture something like that from him, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, it's like, no, those are the guys you really got to look out for. Because you're like, yeah, you're nice, but like, what's really going on? This man ate sushi with me for 7 years, and then I found out in January that he hates it. Who does that?
That is really weird. I feel like we could go really deep on that.
Like that's just like one example
weird.
of like, like there's something going on. You know what I mean? So it is. I mean, it is what it is. I've just accepted it, and honestly, I'm just so happy now, because I feel like I overcame a lot, and I learned a lot about myself, because I did not handle the situation the way I thought I would at all. I really, and the people that know me well, checked in a lot, because they knew kind of where mentally I could go. Yeah. And were surprised that I was handling it so well. And, my best friend was even like, I think that you're suppressing and you're going to just like explode one day. And, and she was a bit worried about that. But I think I just chose to not let some asshole, ruin my whole life. And I read the quote that said, I'm going to probably butcher it, but pretty much it was, don't allow life experiences to change who you are. And that was already kind of happening to me, just because I like closed my heart off pretty quickly. That was pretty instant. Like I was like, oh, well, nobody's getting to that. Right. I was always saying, oh, I'm going to be single for at least a couple of years and work on me and blah, 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 blah.
We're so good at making plans.
We're so good.
That's like what we're like. It's so funny that you said that, because I agree. Like the second something happens, we're like 10 years ahead. We're like, so here's what the next 10 years look like.
And what's so interesting is in that moment when you're doing that, your whole plan that you just had just got shattered.
Right.
So it's like, didn't you just learn your lesson that planning stuff really doesn't work? Yeah. Like you can have an idea of what the next 10 years might
or
look
a goal or a dream or
but there's no but planning.
Don't like push yourself to be staying on this timeline and you have to do this and this and this, because then life happens.
Yep. And the timeline thing is really what gets, I think, a lot of people. And I think what the people's opinion of your timeline really gets, to you, because you're wondering, well, what are they going to think? If I'm posting pictures and I'm out every weekend, right? Because I have every Saturday night. Like, what am I going to do? I'm 32. I'm like, still
you're single,
let's do it. But then I would post a picture and be like, oh, I wonder if people think, oh, when is she spending time with her kids, or what does that look like? So you get, you kind of get hard on yourself, I guess, about enjoying life, because you're worried about what everybody else is going to think. But it's like, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, because you need that time and you need that moment to just take for yourself. Because I was a stay-at-home mom for 6 years that worked 2 jobs and was a stay-at-home mom the entire time, from the minute my kids were out. So to feel guilty to have, every other evening and a Saturday night to myself is absolutely absurd. It's like I dedicated my whole life to these kids. Every move that I made was based on what was best for them. So for anybody to judge me on what I'm doing, no, it's not going to happen.
Well, and it is something you have to keep reminding yourself of, because I just think that's like naturally in our, single, not divorced, not mom, not like, it doesn't matter. You post something, you have an opinion, you whatever. You're going to like wonder how people are interpreting that. And I'm going to butcher this next quote, but somebody does say it. And I don't even know who says it. A lot of people say this. Everyone says it. It talks about how like you care more about like what people think about you than people think about you.
Absolutely.
And so, but it's also, I say that right now, and legit, I could go make an Instagram video to like post on my story, and I'll make it 4 times, because I'm like, oh, I don't like that one. I'm going to redo it. Or why did I say that? So I just think it's like a constant thing we have to keep reminding ourselves.
Yeah.
No matter what situation that
And
we're
I
in.
think as a wife and as a mom, especially, that like everybody's got an opinion on everything nowadays, and everybody loves sharing their opinion, not to your face.
Oh, sure.
But, you know, social media makes it really easy for everybody to share their opinion. Because I've had one-on-one conversations with people that I'm like, yeah, you're really different in person, you know, not as ballsy, are you? Because I'm really straightforward about things. And it's interesting when I catch people that are really ballsy online and they're not like that in real life. So it just, to me, I just think anybody that takes the time to shame anybody for what they're doing in their life is completely outrageous, because nobody knows, you know, not only this situation, but nobody knows my history in general of everything that I've been through. So it's like, you can't judge me.
Right.
And, you know, for me, my biggest priority is that my kids are healthy, happy, safe. And then from there, I'm right there, you know, like same goes for myself. And I think my happiness is very important, because at the end of the day, if I'm not happy, they're not going to be happy. Like their quality of life can't be positive if they're with somebody that's miserable, you know?
Yeah.
So once I kind of realized that part, like, you know what, your happiness really matters. Do what you need to do.
Yeah.
It really helped. And I got some great support, and that I think if you see somebody or hear their story, like share your story, you know, like I think it really does. That really made me feel like I wasn't alone in this situation, and this kind of thing happens, unfortunately, a lot. And it's like, I wish we would all just kind of talk about it. And I also think it would happen less if it wasn't so secretive.
Yeah.
Because it's like cheating is such a, you know, secretive thing that nobody talks about. So it's like, as a cheater, you're probably like, oh, I'll get away with this because nobody's going to tell. And he was specifically, you know, I don't want to say like the word targeting, but I guess kind of stay-at-home moms. Like that was kind of like the people that he was doing these things with were all stay-at-home moms. So his theory was like, well, they weren't going to talk. You know, they've got too much to lose. Right? I know.
Wow.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild. But that just kind of shows you how secretive the stuff can get, and how people think they can just get away with all of it. So I'm just happy that at the end of it all, now I'm like really enjoying life. And I did take a trip to Europe with just, you know, my girlfriends, and spent 10 days, which honestly, talk about mom guilt. Holy cow.
Did you have mom guilt on that trip?
God. Well, it wasn't on the trip, more so like leading up to the trip.
Okay.
Like that week before. I mean, it was months before, but like that week before was really intense. The couple of days prior, I mean, I was just a mess. Because I've never been away from them for 10 days, you know, like I didn't even know what that was going to feel like and what it was going to be like. And my ex was good enough to, you know, he took the week off so he could be with them. And, which was nice, because he said like, well, you know, Mason's out of school, so it'd be great for all of us just to, you know, hang out during the summer. And he wanted to take them camping and stuff. So it like all worked out really great. But I was so hard, and I hated being so hard on myself, because it was one of those things that was on top of my bucket list, was good to go to. I'm European, I'm Yugoslavian. So for me, going back home has always been a difficult thought, but I've always wanted to go to Paris, and Italy was always on my bucket list. So I was like, you know what, this is an opportunity to kind of check all those boxes. And when I got there, all that mom guilt went away, because I had a really eye-opening experience, in the sense that like I just really understood myself even more, just being around European people, and like walking down this, like in Italy, walking down the street, I could just see my parents' faces everywhere, or like in just the mannerisms and the way people talked. And like, you know, Yugoslavians are very, like I would say we're pretty interesting. But we talk with our hands in like just very Italian way, I guess.
Yeah.
So it was just so, for me, it was just so powerful to feel so stripped down, and for the first time really just accept all my twerks, because I've always like kind of felt out of place here and never understood why. And then when I got there, and I just felt like I was in that perfect spot. I feel like that puzzle piece that just made sense. And I was like, oh, that's why I do these things, you know? Like it just all of a sudden felt so normal, and I felt so good about myself, and I was so light and free. And it was just like, this is exactly the kind of person my kids need to be around, you know? And it also just not that, but it also embraced me to be who I really am, who I truly, truly am, and really reconsider the things that I really want for myself and them, and take that time to really like understand it, accept it, and then kind of figure out a game plan.
Yeah.
There's that word again.
The plan. The plan.
The plan. It's
Well,
always the plan.
it's a plan for now.
For now. Yeah.
For now. It's
Yeah.
a dream, it's a path, it's all those things. Yeah, because I think being in a situation like that where you use the word so stripped. And I think like where you are just kind of forcefully removed from what you imagined today would be like, right? Like this day,
Right.
October 16th. Like that's not the day this is going to air, but it's going to confuse people.
It's okay.
It's not October 16th. If you're listening to this, people are like, what? It's Halloween still? Like it's not what you imagined this day was going to look like. So here you are now forcefully removed. You have to find that again. Like you have to find what that does look like, because motherhood does change us, and it does totally consume us. And being a wife totally consumes you.
Yep.
And that can be really great, and that can also be really hard when that's gone.
Right. Yeah, I think for me, I dedicated so much of myself to being a mother and a wife that I did lose a lot of myself in many ways. I mean, so many ways. And I think for me, one thing that was really, this is going to sound so funny, but one thing that was really weird for me is like I really lost myself like sexually and like physically, like I didn't even know whose body I was in or where I was at. I didn't feel confident. There was like a part of me that was just kind of like, where do I go from here? Like, can I even have sex with a man after, you're being with one person for 10 years. You're like, what does that look like? There's all these things that, I mean, those are just, an example of like one thing that was really intimidating. And you go through all these little, things that you start facing of like, oh my gosh, kissing someone else, like a simple little thing like that. You're like, do I even know how to do that anymore? Like, like you literally just kind of freeze up and you, I mean, I'm doing just fine now, but
get it, girl.
But you know what I mean? It's just like one of those things where you're like, you start to really dissect all those little things about yourself, like wanting to do new things or, I danced a lot. I did dance, when I was pregnant with Mia, which kind of helped me, with my pregnancy and stuff. But, and I've always taken a class here or there, but just like focusing on those little things that you like to do. Like I love to paint. So I made a painting nook, in my bedroom. I rearranged the whole house, by the way. I will tell you that I didn't. I should have
like a cleansing thing for you.
It was a necessary. Like I just didn't feel comfortable in here, and so that was like that first week. That's all I did was I just kept rearranging everything. And I will tell you, my room right now looks like a teenager's bedroom because it's like set up for one because I have it pushed up in the corner and I have one bedside table. But coming into a bedroom with two bedside tables every night was killer. Like it was I slept on the couch. I was like, I can't even sleep up there. And so the minute like I kind of turned it around, pushed everything up, I like got rid of all the sheets and everything, got my fresh sheets and all that. It really changed everything for me. But that was necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way I would have stayed in this house as it was because it was.
Yeah. And did you do painting or anything, or you?
No, because we had just done that.
I thought this was new. I love this color.
No, I've had the blue.
Oh, I love that.
Turquoise. No, we did the gray, and like I put in the fireplace and just like little touches. But I really don't want to stay here. Like this, like I really want to get out of this place. And so I don't want to put in too much into it. I just needed to feel different. So I got new pillows and like, shifted a few things and, got the rug and, just little things.
Yeah.
So
your own stuff.
Just to make it feel better. And that I think is really important, is being in a space that helps you feel light and bright and that you enjoy being in instead of, having it feel toxic and,
well, and just having it feel like yours,
Right.
Like I always look at those, like now that the viaduct is down in Seattle.
Oh, so weird.
I know, so weird. But I look at all those condos and stuff, right? And I think in my mind, if I was 22 and for some reason found myself with millions of dollars, because that'd be the only way I could live in one of those condos, but let's not play that into the factor. So if I was 22 and I was single and I wasn't a mom, this is what my apartment would look like. You know, like I always think about that stuff. And the other day I said it out loud and I was like, I don't want to be a bad mom. Like, I'm just saying, like, that's how I would do that. And my husband was like, you're not a bad mom. Like, people think like that's fine. Of course. And I was like, oh, okay. But I think sometimes because we think about those things, it makes us think like a bad mom. Yeah. Anyway, so now here you
that
are.
Mom guilt. That mom guilt is
sucks.
terrible. It's terrible. You know, one of the things, so, you know, when you think divorce, like everybody has this cookie cutter thing of how divorce is supposed to look like, right? And obviously everything about mine has been a little different, I guess. But, you know, I posted on a mom's group of just, hey, you know, I'm curious what other family dynamics look like other than 2 homes, you know, going back and forth 50% or whatever, you know, like what else, what are other options? And there was a mom that posted where she actually removed herself from the house and she has a condo of her own. And then she just comes in every other day, just like my ex does. And then she stays there for the weekend essentially. And so she has like a 1-bedroom apartment to herself, and they've been doing that for 8 years. So yeah, wow. I mean, I thought, well, that's interesting. You know, she still has her own space, but then she can kind of, you know, come and go as she wishes. I mean, I know at some point it's not really completely fair to the other partner, but if you're both making, you know, those decisions and sacrifices, and one couple actually, they had one home, but they split it. So I think he lived downstairs, she lived upstairs, and then the kids, yeah. And I thought, like, that wouldn't work for me because that's too close for comfort. But it's like interesting, right? There's other ways of going about it, other than, you know, splitting 100% of the way and like just shuttling the kids back and forth. I don't want to do that, but now that I'm dating, it's like, it is a little weird, you know, it's, and luckily the person that I'm dating now is very understanding because he's dated, a divorce or, you know, somebody with kids in a baby daddy situation. So it's like, you know, you just understand it better. Yeah. And you take it for what it is. And I think it is, even for him, it's hard to know that, hey, you know, we do have a healthy co-parenting relationship. Yeah. Right? It is healthy. It's healthy. And we're communicating, and, you know, he comes and he cooks and he cleans and he like picks up in here and he cleans the kids' room, and, you know, he puts in his effort when he's here. So, I know that that's not like the typical thing that people see. So I don't expect everybody to understand it, but it's like, for right now, it's what's working. And I feel like it's easier to transition my kids into potentially living with their dad in a different space just because he's not here all the time. So there's already this idea that dad lives elsewhere. And they also know that right now that's not an option because he lives with his brother and his family and stuff. So it's not like, you know, there's space for them. But I think once we do decide to do that, I don't know if the kids will even want to actually live there part-time or if they're going to want to stay here and then kind of go as they wish. But I think we both agreed that it's going to be up to them. Yeah. I think that's what's really important about your story is that although it comes from a place of, excuse me, a place of like difficultness. Is that the word I'm looking for? This is what I was just talking about before this interview started. A hardship. Thank you. Remember before I was like, I say these like dumb words and I'm like, what did I just say? What was I trying to go for? I make up words all the time. I make them up. It's cool that you guys have decided that the kids are first. Yeah. And although what he did was obviously very hurtful for you, and when you talk about that, you can tell that that was hurtful for you, but it's clear that you know he's a really good dad. Yeah. And I think that that's cool. Yeah. I think it's important. And I told him, you know, I do have boundaries with him. So I've expressed those very clearly. And the hard boundary with the kids is you fuck up once and you're done. Yeah. Like, that's just what it is. Like, I don't care what it is, the second that you start messing, because I'm the type of person that I'm like, you're either here or you're not. You can't do this in and out, back and forth, random, not really being there, but being there kind of dad. Like, that's not fair to anybody. And I feel like that hurts kids more, right? When somebody makes random time for you than just being like, you know what, this person's just not healthy for you. Once they get to a place where they are, then we can figure things out. So I feel like I forced him to go into counseling and in order to be around them at the very beginning, because I did it because he had like a panic attack at work and stuff during this whole thing and was saying interesting things. So I was like, you know what, I think mentally you're not doing well. So in order to like be alone with them, I need you to take some time and see a counselor. And I actually went to his counselor appointment with him.
Oh, you did?
About a month in. Yeah. Because I knew he was lying and I knew I wasn't putting in the work. And so, when I went in, the counselor was like, I don't even know why you're here. And I was like, you know what? I just wanted to tell you my truth because I think it's important, because I don't think he's going to tell you that part. And so, and he didn't share the details. You know, he shared like, oh, he cheated on his wife. That was what he shared. Yeah. But I felt like the details were so important of like how many women, that one of them was a really close friend of mine, when, how, you know, like all the manipulation that we did counseling last year, that he lied during counseling for so long, all of those things. And I told him, I said, you know, if you really want to get better, you have to be honest with yourself and like the person that you're working with, or you're never going to get, you know, into a healthy space. Yeah. And, I don't know, I'm glad I did it, because I just felt like I did what I needed to do for my kids to give him the tools to be the best parent that he can for them. Yeah. And if he chooses not to put in the work and he chooses to, you know, screw that relationship up, that's on him. Yeah. You know? Yeah. That's all I really cared about.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great. I think it's clear that you've done ample amount of things for him and for your kids.
Lord.
And you mentioned now that you're dating.
I am.
Which I love.
I am. And you know what's interesting? When I was in Europe, you know, I had this like, oh, I love this. I'm so free. I'm so happy with myself. I'm so content with being single. There was just this moment of like, I like being alone, you know, like, and I've been in a relationship since I was 14. Like literally I've had 3. I've had my high school sweetheart, college sweetheart, and then my husband, and maybe like 3 months in between each, if that. And so I've literally always been in a long-term relationship. So it was really hard for me, you know, when I was in Europe, it was already like 6 months that I had been since everything had happened. So I was just like, man, I thought by 6 months I would have had like anxiety and freaking out about being single, but I had this like freedom that I just loved. I loved who I was. I loved what I learned about myself. I love who I kind of like started being. And like, I've been a tough cookie my whole life. Like I have that superwoman, like don't mess with me vibe all my life. I don't let people in really easy. I don't trust easy. Like there's all these things. And I just started stripping all that away. I just kind of was like, you know what? Like you win. Here's my whatever armor, you know, like let's just strip it all and let's just be me and just like not care about what other people are going to think about my emotions and, you know, being weak and letting myself just whatever, be vulnerable, I guess. And so I had this like, oh, okay, you know, this is great. And my now boyfriend, which is so funny, 32-year-old, 2 kids with a boyfriend. But he messaged me on Instagram while I was in Italy, and he works night shift. So it just kind of worked out because it was daytime there, nighttime here. And we, you know, chit-chatted, and he had been asking me to go on a date for probably like 2 months at that point. And I kept kind of, you know, oh, maybe whatever, you know, just kind of blowing him off because we have way too many mutual friends. And I just like the idea of just not mixing the two worlds. You know, I just wanted to like date someone that nobody knew and whatever. And well, I was in Italy. I'm like happy-go-lucky, just feeling amazing. And I was like, sure, you know, like why not? When I get back, we'll go out. And and then we went on our first date, and our first date was hilarious because he brought 2 friends along. So it was me, him, and 2 of his, one of his friends, and then his friend brought a friend. So it was hilarious. And I told him just jokingly through messages, I said something like, well, we might need some supervision because we're really reckless in the way we like talk smack to each other. Yeah. And we're just really silly. So he thought, he was like, oh, you thought I was joking. So he actually invited
Oh my gosh, that is funny.
And I, at the date, it was really fun. And then his friends left and it was just him and I, and we talked for a while. And I just felt like I met my best friend. Like, I really did. I was like, man, this guy's so fun. Like, this is great. Like, what a great friend. Like, literally my mind was. But I kept thinking, like, yeah, he'd be great in maybe like 5 years. Like, to me, like, felt a little immature, and like he's just really funny and like very lighthearted, and inappropriate. We both are. Like, our sense of humor is so inappropriate, but it works really great. And so when I left the first date, I really was like, wow, like, I know this person's going to be in my life. Like, I found a really great friend. And the second date was kind of random. Like, he said, what are we eating tonight? And I was like, well, I can be ready in 5 minutes, and like, let's go grab something. Nice. And then we did. And that was when I was like, this is really interesting, because he spent like that whole week kind of making me feel like important. And he would text me, and he would show up, and he'd come and have coffee with me, and, just do all these things that I felt like were very mature of him as a man, and like the things that he would talk about and stuff and open up about. And so I thought, all right, this is getting interesting. Like, I really like this guy. And that Friday, I went and cooked dinner at his house, and we, had like plans to play games and watch TV and just like get to know each other. And it was like instant. I mean, it was like the weirdest like connection ever. And it was weird.
It's like a movie.
It was like a movie. It was totally like that moment of like, the world kind of just slows down.
Yeah.
And like, time just doesn't matter. Like, I didn't even know where my phone was the whole time. Like, I just wanted to enjoy his time and his presence. And to me, it was wild because he's like 6'4". So he's like really tall and like super buff and like just a really cute guy.
It is like a movie.
I know. I'm like, who are you? But then not only that, like, he doesn't have kids of his own, but he has 7 nieces and nephews that he pretty much has raised. So he like has so much experience with kids. He's very comfortable with dating someone with kids because he's done it in the past. And so it's just like, where did you come from? Like, who are you? Like, and he would hate to hear this, but he's so loving and caring and so thoughtful. And I've never dated anybody or been with anybody that just does things, right? Like, there's a lot of people that talk about doing things, but he almost, like, his words don't match his actions in the sense that he actually just does it. Like, he'll talk smack and say he won't do it, but then he's actually going to do it, Yeah. And it's so interesting being with someone that's actually like motivated and like puts in the work and just, you don't even have to ask almost. It just kind of happens. So that's been lovely and very different from my past. It's just terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
I can imagine there's a lot of fear with that.
Yeah. But he legitimately was just like, I got you. Like, don't worry.
Enjoy this moment.
I know. See, I am.
Your year has been enough already. It's time for your heart to have
this moment,
some compassion and some love. Because here's the thing, like, I know my parents are divorced. And I won't bore anybody with the details, but they commingle just fine. We do holidays together. My stepmom is amazing. Like, everything's kosher in that house. And as a kid, I don't ever remember specifically being like, oh, I wish my parents would be together. Just because my stepmom has always been in the picture, and my mom and my dad are just kind of like two separate beings to me. They got divorced when I was very young. But as an adult, what I can appreciate is that they also focused on themselves.
Right.
Like, I would never want my parents to stay together for the sake of me and be super unhappy.
Absolutely.
And I would never want my parents to be separated and be super unhappy to save me. And I almost feel like that's a detriment that a lot of parents do. Like, I hear so much, like, people stay together because it's better for their kids. And then they teach their kids what an unhealthy relationship looks like. Or parents get divorced and then they're so guarded because they can't hurt their kids and they're too afraid. When, like, this is just life.
Right.
And I promise you, your kids can handle all of it.
Right.
And if you put them first, it will work out. But like you have to be happy too.
Right.
Like you have to feel that joy. You're a human still. Just because you're a mom doesn't mean that you have to like strip away from every feeling, emotion, the fact that you're a human being.
Right.
The fact that like you should go out and dance and meet a guy and do whatever you want. You're freaking single. Like
Right.
that's life.
Yep.
And it shouldn't be different if you have kids or if you don't have kids.
Absolutely.
It should be the same. You're a human being.
I know. And, you know, going into it, you have all this like, well, if I was, I wouldn't, you know. I always used to think like I would never want that person to meet my kids, which now to me sounds absolutely ridiculous, because what I'm realizing is whoever is dating me is also dating my children.
Yeah.
So as much as my dynamic with him matters, his dynamic with the kids also matters, because, you know, if we're going to be in a relationship, like just think about the amount of time that it takes to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
And if you want to have someone be part of your life, then you can't exclude them from like the biggest part of your life.
Right.
You know? And I didn't think that I'd want anybody to meet my children, because I had dated, you know, other people in the past, you know, in between, or what, nothing serious, but just like dates here and there. And definitely I never had a feeling of like, oh, I'd want you to meet my children. But with this current situation, it was like, I have to see what you're like with my kids. Like, I want to know if my kids would like you, because I'm so like overjoyed and happy to be around you that I only can hope that my kids feel the same way. Because if I brought him around and my kids were like, yeah, what, no, you know, what's going on here, and we couldn't make that relationship work, and they couldn't get along, like, I feel like that would be a deal breaker for me, unfortunately. You know what I mean? I think it would be. And so for me to wait 6 months or whatever.
I mean,
you know,
but again, it's like, whose timeline are you going? Who wrote the book on like how you're supposed to handle this situation?
I know. And, you know, I introduced him as my friend, and my kids meet a lot of my friends. And I think it was just important to see him around them and see how they see him. And to me, it's been interesting because my kids are different with him. And I don't know why. You know, maybe they see how I am with him, or maybe they feel whatever it is that's going on with us, so they just like feel closer to him. But they're very, very comfortable around him. My daughter is so comfortable. She asks to call him all the time, which I find so interesting, because she doesn't ask to call anybody other than like her dad and grandma. So like those are like the two people that she always calls. And so every morning, you know, she's like, can we call him? And it's weird because I haven't, you know, it's not like we're holding hands and hugging and kissing or anything like that in front of them. Like, we're very much like friend level when they're around, and we're just, you know, together, you know, hanging out, and he's usually just playing with them anyway. So it's like, I mean, why deprive myself of that, like, idea of, hey, will this actually work? And for us, this feeling is so intense that we both kind of talked about a lot of, you know, things that we could see for each other together. And I feel like it's, you know, my kids are going to be a big part of that. And I feel like their comfort matters to me. And I think his comfort with them matters to me. And my comfort with him being able to be a positive human being in their life is really important to me. So it's like, I have to see it in order to continue a relationship with someone. I get why people don't introduce, you know, anybody and everybody to their children, right? Like, there's got to be some boundaries, but I don't know. I was a little worried about people being judgy about that. You know, is it too soon? Because we've only been dating for like a month. It hasn't even been, but it's like, this is not like a normal feeling for me.
Sure.
There's like nothing normal about this. It's like beyond anything I've really experienced. And so it's like.
And why deprive your kids of seeing you that happy?
Exactly.
I mean, look, I'm not going to say I'm coming from like the wisdom book of wisdom here. But the best thing that I think you can do is just, oh, hi, are you coming to the mic? There's a doggy coming to the mic now. The best thing that you can do is just do you. Yeah. And like, if your heart tells you it feels good, then cool. And if it doesn't, then don't do it. Yeah. I think that's the best thing about what you said at the beginning, actually. You talked about when you first had your son 6 years ago, how there was kind of like, you had to go with how you felt about things, because there wasn't so much social media and community groups and moms giving advice and all this stuff. And I think that that's great about what you're doing now, is like, just go, you know, humans have an instinct in them. Moms have it even harder, even stronger. So it's like, just do what you got to do.
Yeah. I think that's been the biggest thing for me, just as a human in general. Like I really try to shut out everything so that I can just really feel every moment and just like really get deep into like, what do I actually feel about this, right?
Yeah.
Removing everybody's opinions outside of it. And you know what? I'm living my best life right now, and
Yeah.
I want my kids to be part of it. And I also think it's important for both of them just to be like, you know what? Mom got through this situation in the best way possible. And there is good in all of this, right? There's like always something at the end of the rainbow. Whoops, but that's my Italian, my European side coming out. But yeah, I mean, it's just, it's such a weird year for me. But I'm just like, just enjoy it and just take all the punches, and it's going to be just fine. I'm not too worried about any of it. I think overall everybody's going to be doing just fine. The kids are going to grow up, and hopefully, I mean, my biggest hope, honestly, is for my ex to find a really healthy relationship, because I think he really needs that. And I think he would be a much better person having like somebody that he really,
companionship.
he really, loves and cares about. And I think we all do better when we have a partner. So that's my only hope, is I hope that he finds the same thing, and we can all do holidays and Christmases and whatever it is that we're doing together as a blended family, because I think that's really, just one extra person that could be a positive influence in the kids' lives. And I think that's kind of cool. So we'll see. To be continued
on the next episode of the Momma Stories podcast.
Yeah, maybe I'll be heartbroken next time.
No, stop.
Hey,
you don't know. You're
here's
right.
Here's the thing, though, is...
But see, I'm the one watching the movie, and I'm like, don't...
I know. And
don't give me a bad ending.
I will say, like, going into it as soon... For most people, it's probably sooner than they would think that they would get into it. For me, it's actually like, I'm impressed that I've been single for 6-7 months, just because I'm just a creature that loves having a man. I love having a man. I don't need a man, but I love having a man. Yeah. That's always been me. So it's good that I had the time that I did. But for me, I think for letting yourself feel and accept that you are deserving of love, and that just because something like this happens to you doesn't mean that your love train has gone past you and you're done, that phase of your life is done or whatever. Like, I get that feeling, but it's like you have to move past it, and you also can't punish the person that you're with going forward for somebody else's mistakes. And so that's my biggest thing now, is like I'm overly cautious of like making sure that I am not taking my baggage and bringing it into my current situation, because I don't think that's fair. And I mean, obviously my situation was a bit extreme, so it's like I can't expect men in general to be doing that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So
but it's also like, that's a trust thing that you're going to have to build and continue to build. So I totally get that.
But I feel like it's more trusting myself than trusting the other person, because at the end of the day, we all got to trust each other until we give each other the reasons not to. I think going into it not trusting someone is like, why are you going in it at all?
It's like drinking decaf coffee. Why are you doing it?
Why are you doing it? Well, like, for me, it just makes no sense. It's like, if you already are not trusting the person, then there's something wrong. Right? So that's the thing with my current situation. He totally called me out on all my bullshit. He's like, you don't want to be single. This is not who you are. Like, you are a hopeless romantic. Like, you want to be with somebody. And I was like, no, I don't. You don't know me. And then I went home.
Like, yes, I do.
Damn it, he's right. But and I look at him, and he has given me no reason not to trust him. And we've had really open communication. And I've told him, like, if you're uncomfortable with things, if I'm uncomfortable, like, let's just talk about it and figure it out. And I have as I'm getting older, I'm just more like fluid about the whole thing anyways. Like, I'm not as like, I don't know, I'm not as intense about people talking to other people or like having interactions with opposite sex or whatever. Like, I just feel like it's kind of healthy, and like, you should have, friends that are girls. And, I know a lot of people that are like uncomfortable with their husbands having friends that are girls, or, whatever.
Yeah.
So I've taken the conscious of like, let's just talk about it. Like, I want to know who you know. I want to, know what your dynamic with people are, so that I'm not worried or there's like lack of trust. And, so far the communication has worked really well. And I mean, hell, we're still honeymooning and enjoying every second of it. So like
enjoy that.
But I've seen his I've poked the bear a bit and like seen his annoyed side, which I love it. Cause I like to meet someone and like feel like I know them, right? I don't want to meet somebody and have them pretend like they're this person. So it's been really honest and raw, and that definitely is like exactly what I needed after the situation. I just needed someone that was like, oh, okay, I know who you are. Like I don't have to guess who you are.
Right.
And I like that because I can't be with passive aggressive, like just,
yeah. Oh, I hear you, girl.
I need a straight shooter. And he is, oh my God. I needed like a man, like someone that can be like, chill out.
Yeah.
you're talking out of your ass. Calm down. Because I need someone that grounds me a bit because I can't kind of let myself go lost in the clouds a little bit. So it's all good.
Yeah. Well, I am so happy for you.
Thank you.
I'm happy that you took what could have been, I think, something that is really shattering for a lot of people and life-changing in a negative way. And I think you've changed it into being something a lot more positive. Self-care, loving your babies, and enjoying this new venture that you're on.
Yeah.
Not the one you planned for, but
I know.
the one you're enjoying.
I know. I feel like somebody told me, I met a woman who was married 4 times, and she was like, I have one for every decade. And she was, I thought about it when she talked about it. I was like, she's right. You change so much from like my early 20s, because that's when I met my ex, to your 30s. And then from your 30s to your 40s, I can't imagine. And then from your 40s to your 50s, like you change so much. And if the person isn't growing at the same rate that you are, it makes sense not to stay together. She says we put so much pressure on being with this one person for the rest of our life. But it's like, how do you know who you're going to be in 10 years? You don't. Like, I didn't know I was going to be this person 10 years ago. There's no way. Yeah. And so it's like, how would I expect someone else to coexist with me if they're not growing at the same rate or on the same path that, I am? So now I just have such a different perspective on it. I used to think like, I'd only get married once. And I thought I would, after the divorce thing and everything, I was always like, I don't want any more kids. I don't want a husband. I don't want any of that. But now I'm like, I could get married again. I could have another baby. Like, why not? There's no reason not to. Yeah. As long as we're taking care of our stuff and everybody's happy and enjoying life, like, do it.
Yeah. Just have to do you.
I know. And I mean, who doesn't like a wedding? I mean, let's
seriously. I always tell my husband, I'm like, when can we get married again? I said one time, it was like a few years after, we've only been married almost 5 years, but I think it was like on our 3rd anniversary or something around that time. I said, oh my gosh, for my next wedding, I want to wear that dress. And he was like, what? And I was like, I'm talking about you and I, duh. But secretly I was like, oh my God, that was really weird. Did I say that out loud? Because, you see a dress and you're like, why did I pick that dress for my wedding? Like, we just naturally are dreaming of dream weddings all the time.
I know. What's funny is the guy that I'm with, I don't know if I'm going to say his name. I don't know why, but it's like the guy I'm seeing, we kind of randomly talked about it. And he told me the wedding colors he always imagined, which was navy and gold. And I was okay. And he added like, but like that's a fall or winter wedding. So we'd have to do like anywhere after September or I was like, and he loves the holidays and I'm obsessed with the holidays. So I feel like we could totally do like a really sexy, like moody, like navy and gold, like holiday.
I like this.
Thing. Wouldn't it be fun?
I'm watching this movie, girl. I want to see this ending, okay?
Somebody told me, she was like, could you just write a book about like all of your dating experiences of the last like 6-7 months and like how you got to this phase? And I thought, man, there's a lot of good stories. I need to start writing them all out.
You should.
It's too fun.
Yeah.
And people just need to have a light heart about it and just enjoy it.
Yeah. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
Well, I am so thankful for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
I know you're a busy
I'm
mom.
so proud of you, too. This is really cool.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just so thankful to hear everyone's story.
Yeah.
And to hopefully help moms everywhere not feel alone.
Yeah.
That's the key. And know that there's other things that maybe they haven't heard, or there's different situations they didn't know existed. And
Absolutely. I think what you're doing is great. And I think it's so important that we all communicate, all the good, the bad, and the ugly, just to really
normalize our lives.
Yes.
Like, we're all just humans.
Yep. And we all have imperfections. And like, I think social media makes things seem so perfect.
Yeah.
And this is like a way to really be like, hey, it's not what it seems.
But you can still make your Instagram perfect. That's okay.
I know.
I try. I definitely try. Sometimes it doesn't work out.
Nope. I know, but it's good. I think podcasts are a wonderful way for people to connect. And I know I did that a bit. I can't remember what it's called, but there was like a single girl one that was so great. It was just like being, in your 30s and single is like a whole other thing. And especially like with the apps and stuff. So it's like, it's fun. It's a nice way for you to kind of find the things that you need in life and connect with other humans without having to like ask for it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So good.
I love it.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for your time. But the one last thing I want to ask you is, given your whole year and everything that's happened, what's the one piece of advice that you would want to give to mamas?
Oh, wow. I think my one piece of advice is ignore the outside world and do what's best for you, period. Whatever that means to you, just do it. Because I think the outside world has just so many different ways of affecting us and like almost allowing us to not know ourselves. Even like wearing makeup. Like there's so many women that like you wear makeup every single day that you don't even know what you look like, and you do it because of what everybody else is seeing, right? You're not doing it because, I mean, some women probably feel a lot better when they do it and you're up and whatever, but it's just like a simple thing. Like, do you know what you really look like when you're stripped down? Like, are you comfortable being stripped down? And I feel like internally you can do that too by just stripping everybody's opinion away and just taking the time to get to know yourself without anybody else's opinion. I think that's the hardest part. And I think it's the best healing that you can do for yourself is really understanding. Because at the end of the day, I realized I wasn't happy in my marriage. And I didn't want to stay in my marriage. Yeah. Like at the end of the day, I really was not happy. And I'd stayed in a loveless marriage for a really long time because that's what I thought I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
So it's like, dig deep.
Yeah.
Dig deep. And don't let the outside world affect what that means to you.
That is really good.
I think it's important for everybody. I mean, for me, it's been a positive experience, but I think it's because I've brought it up in a positive way. But the opinions are interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So,
well, I can't thank you enough.
I'm glad we did this. I don't know. It's fun to talk about, and it's reality, man.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. I hope you loved it. Please subscribe to this podcast so you can get the latest episodes, and tell us what you think about it in the reviews. And mamas, I love you.